your mask there.
Still
But what
got
you
your
want
29
to do,
seconds.
I put mine like this, because if you put it in between,
Right.
then you still get the flap in your
Yeah,
face.
yeah.
It kind of defeats the whole
Yeah,
purpose.
no, something else to worry with.
Okay, we ready? Wynette, are we ready? Okay. Hewitt City Council Special Workshop is called to order. Let me see, let me get my notes here. Okay. So that's item number one. Item number two, a briefing and discussion concerning City of Hewitt Strategic Plan 2021 to 2026. General Services and Human Resources will be discussed tonight. Bo?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, tonight in General Services, you're going to hear presentations, not sure the order, but you're going to hear presentations regarding drainage, streets, and parks. So I'd like to ask Scott Coleman, our General Services Director, to come up and conduct his presentation, please.
Thank you, sir. Try to go through it pretty quick. There's a lot of information, try to stuff out there all at once. If you have a problem hearing me, just let me know. So I'd like to take this time to help explain the General Services 5-year plan. To do so, we made a quick presentation. Big picture guy, pictures are like 1,000 words to me. So hopefully this will help kind of describe some of the challenges we faced in our department. So we'll start with drainage. Quick rundown of drainage. Drainage is the accumulation of stormwater that is collected from impervious surfaces such as roofs, parking lots, and streets. You remember Community Development Director Tracy Lanford kind of explained to us that as the city grows, other demands grow. Drainage is definitely one of those demands. As you get more homes and more businesses, parking lots, roofs, you get more stormwater that has to be directed to the right route. So just a quick Cliff Notes explanation of the drainage system we have here in the city of Hewitt. I'm just going to show you a few of the main creeks and channels that the stormwater goes to. Just kind of explain the areas that they more or less serve. This is the Chambers Creek. It collects stormwaters from the streets and channels that surround it. The flow of water travels from Hewitt Drive to I-35. Also, some of these creeks, they also take water in from other communities around us. So it's not only just the city of Hewitt's water, it's also other cities as well. You can see in this creek, you kind of have to think of it as an artery. You have your arterial vein here, which I have marked in blue. The arrows are actually the direction that the water travels. And you'll have all these little veins that go into it. For example, these first 4 streets here, or 5 streets rather, they all have little pathways that drain to this creek. Moving on, the next one is Flat Creek. It serves the area off of Panther Way by the high school. A lot of what's south of Panther Way also directs to this point. The next one is probably my favorite because it's the largest one, is Castleman Creek. Castleman Creek, it runs from West Warren Road all the way to I-35. Oops, excuse me, I'll go back a slide. There's a lot of water that travels through this creek. Same thing, each one of these roads that are around it somehow or another, they direct the water to it. And then down here on the other side of I-35, it becomes somebody else's problem. So some of the issues we have with a lot of these areas is a lot of overgrowth of vegetation. And here's a prime example of that. This is a smaller channel that runs between Hillside and Patricia Drive. It flows into Chambers Creek just east of I-35. And it's a good example of what overgrowth does. Kind of point out that. You can see in this area here, that's all trees that have grown to the point of there's something's got to be done with them. When you have trees that have grown to that magnitude, you start accumulating silt and debris that possibly can block those channels and creeks up and cause the drainage not to work. So in turn, all the homes that are around it, they're in a bad way if it's not working properly. So that's definitely an issue we face, and just kind of show you some of what we're doing to help alleviate those problems. This is another area. This is where there's a creek that runs through the Glaze property. This channel serves streets as Radisson, Steamboat, Dendron, Windhill, and South Haven, to name a few. And of course, this one on the upper side here is actually the Castleman Creek that I showed you earlier. They all merge and meet to this point here on the interstate and more or less bottleneck together right there. Same situation. We have a lot of over the growth in that area. Trees, silt developed, just, normal drainage challenges. There's nothing too extreme that we can't handle. It's just my findings of some of this stuff here that's definitely a challenge for us. Just going to show you what we're doing to kind of remove some of this stuff and improve it. This is actually a creek bottom that I went into and took some pictures of. It's kind of funny. I didn't realize it when I took the pictures, but this thing's so heavily grown overhead that you can see this ray of light kind of shining down right there. Just shows you how much shade is actually in that area. This is the actual creek bottom. This is where the water would flow through. This is an area that's holding water simply because of the overgrowth and the silt that's not letting the water flow properly. And here's what we're going to do about it. Back in November, the council approved this purchase of this machinery right here. It's a John Deere 33G mini track loader with the forestry attachment. And what I've just shown you is the prime reason why we asked for it, just to get in there and start taking care of business. This also has a front bucket that we could use to more or less dig dirt, get it out of the channels. And being that it is on tracks, it's very mobile, and we can put it in places you just can't put a normal tractor. This is some of its handiwork. This is an area that if you look here on the back side of this, this whole area was just like that. Just solid willow trees, old dead trees and everything else. We were able to grind it up, turn it into mulch, and make the property usable again. So when we get to that point, we have to start thinking about what we can do as far as preventative maintenance to keep it from coming back. And so back in December of 2019, the council approved for us to purchase this Kawasaki mule. And what we decided to do is actually outfit this mule with the spraying system. It's got two spraying systems on it. It's got one that has a spray bar and another one that's got a wand. And we're able to get this mule, by its design of being a UTV, we're able to get it into areas that we wouldn't be able to get a normal vehicle into. Those areas would be sprayed with herbicide to keep the vegetation down, keep it from growing. All safe way, we use, the chemicals we use are approved for aquatic areas and whatnot, so. And, it's just a quick rundown of drainage. I could probably talk about it all day, Bo said you got a minimal time amount, so.
One question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned a lot of the drainage areas. There's one over here behind Hewitt Elementary that comes in and it goes under Lindenwood, goes behind all those houses and then comes out and goes under Hewitt Drive.
Yes,
Did you
sir.
mention that one and may not be paying attention? Or?
I believe you're referring to Chambers Creek.
Chambers Creek, okay.
Yes, sir. It runs back behind those storage buildings and
Right.
crosses over there by Lynn's La Vega Pharmacy, I believe it is.
Right.
Okay, so it feeds on down by
Yes,
the
sir.
railroad tracks and connects there with another one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor? Question.
Oh,
Can I ask him a question?
sure.
Okay. Speaking of that same area, last year, I believe y'all did some work in that area of Lindenwood, in another area closer, I think was it closer to the elementary or toward Hewitt Drive?
We did some at the Hewitt Drive area.
Okay.
And we did some behind that storage
Right.
rental place.
Okay,
The guys, honestly, they've done a lot of drainage work.
Yeah.
Nothing at large scale like this, more or
Right.
less cleaning out box culverts and
Right.
channels and whatnot.
Okay.
They've done a lot within the
Okay.
last year.
Okay, thank you.
Michael?
Yeah, that's it.
One other question. That feeds also, there's like a tributary to it that goes in behind Oklahoma. There's a drainage back through there that gets grown up all the time.
Yes, sir.
We maintaining that though, aren't we?
We are, and it's definitely a trouble area that we're looking into to improve it. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You have a question?
Just one question.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Scott, on the, were the pictures that we got a month or so ago, was that the glazed part, the creek area that there was so much work done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it fair to say you probably couldn't have done that without that track machine? Or is that-
Absolutely.
is
Well,
that
we could have, but it'd take a lot longer.
Okay, okay.
A
Thank
lot more manpower and, just, yeah, it's night and day difference in the amount of labor it would take.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Okay, go ahead.
All right, great. I'm gonna move on the streets. City of Hewitt currently does ongoing maintenance of over 67 miles of street. Normal street maintenance includes crack sealing, pothole repairs, utility cut repairs, base repairs, slurry or micro sealing, striping, and more. On page 32 in your binders, you can see the estimated cost for some of these street rehabs that we're hoping to get done. And, as you can see, it's quite expensive. This is why preventative maintenance is so important. You have to stay on top of preventative maintenance to get the most life you can out of streets. The better streets maintained, the longer it'll last. So what we've been doing is going around and identifying some of the worst areas and coming up with game plans on how we're going to fix them and how we're going to try to extend the life of them. This is Barbara Dream Street for an example of street needing crack seal maintenance. You can see this entire street, cut it off. This entire street's cracked throughout. It's been slurry sealed before, but there's still some usable life left to it. The base is still it seems to be in decent shape. It's just the surface of it that's pretty well whooped at this time. This next slide actually shows what happens when you don't take care of those cracks. They grow. And as the crack grows, moisture and water penetrate the crack. And then you have vegetation that actually will start growing in the crack. And when that vegetation starts growing, it causes the asphalt to lift up and separate. So as that happens, when traffic goes over it, the asphalt will break and start falling apart. And you start developing potholes. And it's just all downhill from there. So what we've done is started trying to get a little more involved with preventative maintenance with the streets, and this is actually the crack sealer that the city council approved for us back in April. This is it in action. The guys, man, I couldn't be prouder of them. They've taken this machine and just excelled with it. They're doing a great job. Whereas there's crews that I know have done it for a lot longer that just don't have what these guys have as far as crack sealing abilities. So we're currently using this machine to seal cracks throughout town in anticipation of our next slurry seal program. And this is a closer view of the actual cracks that have been sealed. And the way that they do this is the cracks are blown out with compressed air to remove any debris or dirt that's down in the crack. And the rubber sealer is heated to 380 degrees. It's then pumped into the machine and injected into the crack using a hand wand. And as the sealer cools, it hardens to a pliable consistency and seals the crack against water penetration and vegetation. So just this simple sealing of this crack can keep those previous slides from happening. And the sealer helps to bond the asphalt together and just help extend its life as well. And, there's a lot of ground movement here. It's one of the first things I noticed is that there's also a lot of rock in the ground, and I assume that probably has a lot to do with it. But as the ground moves, the road's cracked. There's really nothing you can do about that. You're going to get cracks. So it's our mission to get on top of those and getting them sealed up so that things will last longer for us. Any questions about the streets? Great. Well, I'm going to move on to parks. But a go-ahead with this 5-year plan is to do what we can with the parks in a fiscally responsible manner. I know there's a lot of things people would like to see happen. I think at this time, from some of the discussion I've had with the Parks Board, I think that we could do the city a good service by further developing Warren Park. So that's the bulk of the parks plan actually for these 5 years, along with some minor improvements at Hewitt Park. But this is a picture, the slide I showed you earlier of the actual drainage problems that we face inside of, from the Castleman Creek Channel and the Glaze Channel. And these also actually encompass Warren Park. So by us going in there and knocking out this overgrowth of vegetation and knocking this silt out, we're able to do, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Simply because the park is there. It just worked out that way. But by clearing the brush and the vegetation, it'll help with the drainage as well, and we can further this property to make it where it's actually usable and less of what it is as far as the overgrowth. So these are some ideas we've come up with. This is just a graphic rendition of what's possible out there. The land's 44 acres, so I mean it'd take quite a bit to fill it up. And being where it's at with the creek and a channel surrounding it, I think it would be nice to do more of a nature type situation with it. So we've kind of encompassed like a hike and bike trail around it that kind of follows the actual landscaping of the creek. And overflow parking for when they do have events that require more parking than what's there now. Toddler play equipment, none of the parks have them for whatever reason. So some complaints that we get are that, big kids and little kids playing together doesn't work out too great sometimes. Similar to Hewitt Park, maybe a basketball court, an exercise area. Something I would really like to see is hardwood fruit and nut trees. We pay to irrigate these trees and grow them, and it would be nice if they were able to produce something that the community could get back from that, whether it's some type of fruit or pecans or walnuts or whatever. Pavilions throughout, like a small family-sized pavilions that kind of follow the trail area, and then a large pond pavilion on where the pond's at now, to expand that pond to where it's a larger size, and actually have a pavilion that we could use for not only reservations but for parties and stuff. It would be about the same size as the one that's there now, that's across the other side of the park. And that's just me going over real quick. I mean, there's obviously a lot more to it and a lot more detail to it. So I'm gonna move on to Hewitt Park. And one of the main things I noticed at Hewitt Park is we have these current bathrooms that are for the walking track. And what's been done is they've put in porta-johns, and we pay a monthly fee for these things. And they do not have any hand wash facilities. And to me, it's not a feasible restroom situation. So what I'd like to do is actually go in there. They've got a steel structure, framing, and roof. And I don't know if the plan was to finish them out as normal restrooms later, but we could definitely do that. Wall them off, close them up, permanent plumbing, and actually build restroom facilities in there with hand wash sink and everything else. Same thing as far as trees at Hewitt Park. I'd like to add some hardwoods and nut trees and fruit trees. And then also some toddler equipment, play equipment as well, just to give the younger children a place to play. And before I go any further, does anybody have any questions about the parks? Okay. Well, these last couple of slides, just wanted to talk a little bit about our greatest resource. The council's approved the purchase of some much-needed equipment, and we most definitely thank you for that. And in the General Service Department, we depend on labor quite a bit. And unfortunately, all the fancy equipment in the world can't replace all the labor we have to do, but it most definitely helps. And this is what I would consider our greatest resource, is these guys right here. This is a crew of men and women that I'm honored to direct. They handle most of the city mowing, the streets and drainage work, the maintenance, the city fleet maintenance, park maintenance, and facility maintenance. And I'll be honest, in my 24 years of public service, I haven't worked with a finer crew, and that's the God's honest truth. And I ask them to do something, they get it done. And there's times when I'm thinking to myself, man, I just don't know if they can pull it off, and they do. You know, it's amazing what they're capable of. And kind of like we spoke about earlier, as the city grows, has grown, and continues to grow, those labor demands grow as well. So therefore, in the 5-year plan, I've asked for 2 more positions. I've asked for 1 in the street department, 1 in parks department. And on that note, I know Ms. Higgins, or HR, she can most definitely go into that a lot further. If you have any more questions, that's the end of my presentation.
I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me? Good? Okay. I'm Jessica Higgins, Human Resources. My plan is pretty simple and straightforward, but if we analyze and do everything that we can to it, and especially for our employees, it'll have a huge impact on our organization. The first thing in my plan is an all-in-one HR system. Currently, we have several different systems that's very time-consuming to go in and adjust each employee in each system. We have a system for performance evaluation, onboarding. We have a separate system for training. We have a separate system for payroll. Ideally, we should have one HR system to help our directors, supervisors, manage our employees. By having an all-in-one system, it will reduce time and enable for us to add additional personnel. So we're not sitting there going through each system, adding the employee multiple times. Although the systems all-in-one are very costly, over time, there'll be a big cost reduction for our organization. Currently, there are several different systems that we can look into. There's a system, NeoGov, Paycom, and another system, Kronos. And they all do different things, and it will take a committee probably to review over the different software systems and find out which one is best for us. Okay. The next software would be a benefit connector, which is an open enrollment software that our current broker offers. It will allow employees to review over the benefits and what the city has to offer before open enrollment. And then they're able just to go in there and select their health benefits for the upcoming year. And also this would allow new employees to go ahead and sign up for their health insurance before they're even here and doing their onboarding paperwork. So, the next thing we're going to review over is the salary survey, and Ms. Caitlin is going to pass that out to y'all. So with the salary survey this year, we had several different cities respond, and the cities that I selected are cities with populations that is close to the city of Hewitt, several local cities that we are possibly in competition with, regarding, employees that would like to apply elsewhere, and then cities with several similar job titles. And the several positions on the salary survey is below market. And within the 5 years, I would like to possibly, if we could, get our salaries up to market or above market, so we're not lagging. The reason why is because our problems with our recruitment currently, our applicant pool is very low. And also, applicants are just applying, and they're not showing up for interviews. They're not showing up for first day of employment. So if we could have competitive salaries, our applicant pool would probably increase. If we increase, then we're allowed to do the personnel changes that other departments are requesting for their 5-year. A lot of positions on the salary surveys, if they're blank, that means the city did not have a comparable job title to match it, or they just have a market rate for, they don't have a range. That's pretty much it. It's simple, straightforward request to have an all-in-one and also adjust our salaries within the next 5 years. Do you have any question?
You had mentioned that the systems are not integrated, there's 2 or 3 different systems that you have to operate, enter data multiple times in different systems. And the new one would integrate all of that into one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
Yes, the system NeoGov is probably the ideal system because it handles everything. It also includes a learning management system. So I know y'all are pretty familiar with the TML free system that we have right now, and it's not the easiest software to get our training in with. And with the NeoGov, training, everything that we would be required to have training on, even some police training, is in with that system. I believe they have over 2,000 different training courses. So that would help us be in compliance with required training.
How are you doing the required training courses now? Or this would be, I guess it would come to you. Do you do it online, or how is that set up currently?
And we use TML for our required cybersecurity, sexual harassment, courses like that. We also use, TML has DVDs that they were sending out before COVID, and we would watch those, and, I would make up a test or something to go along with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
These systems that you mentioned here, Kronos, NeoGov, and Paycom, it's, with the exception of the learning management, do they all include the onboarding, the performance evaluations, and benefit tracking, and employee portal, and those type of things?
And the Paycom did not offer the performance evaluation.
Okay.
That's the downside for that one. That one is really more pertains to payroll.
Okay.
So that would keep track of our employees' vacation time, checks, timekeeping. It didn't offer performance evaluations. I think, though, they could add that for an additional fee. It's just something that we would have to evaluate each software to see which one works best for us.
Okay. And the benefit connector, that is simply for benefits?
Health and benefits, open enrollment.
Okay, okay. So would you pick one of those 3 along with the benefit connector? Or would it be one of the 4?
And the benefit connector is only for open enrollment health insurance, so we'd have to use that as well as one of the other softwares.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Now, on this salary survey, first of all, thank you for putting this together.
Sure.
This is going to be very helpful. I looked at the first page, and right off the bat, I see one from Robinson where their animal control officers paid almost $60,000, where the average is like almost $37,000. Are there any, Woodway has a public safety department. They don't have police versus fire. are there any things in here that are similar to that maybe combine multiple things, whereas ours is just one?
It could.
Okay.
So, for example, the Robinson, they could be paying that person to do multiple things.
Okay.
Okay, and then they could have an employee that's been there for 20 years and they're maxed out, but their range is going to change.
Okay.
Um,
So these are just current salaries?
They could be, yes.
Okay.
I know Robinson, the lady I talked to there with their HR, they're adjusting all their salaries. So they could have an employee that's maxed out, but eventually they will not be paying that for the next person that's coming in.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
Okay.
Makes-
So their current employee probably makes that 59,000, but that will not be the next person's incoming rate.
Yeah, and if I would've looked at the next column where it says the max is 40,000, it's
Yeah.
obvious it's somebody that has been there for quite some time. or-
And they could be doing multiple
Right,
things
something like that.
compared to, it's hard to compare unless we sit and evaluate each job description.
Right.
Probably do a questionnaire and stuff like that to find out exactly what matches our positions here, but I just go off the job titles.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is very helpful.
Anyone else have any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, I just got one thing before Jessica goes. Why don't you let the council know about some of your more recent professional and educational
No.
development matters so that they're aware?
I'm good, thank you.
No, you need to tell them what's going on over the last few months.
Please do.
We want to hear.
I told you not to embarrass me.
I'm not embarrassing you.
I'm going to receive my master's in HR management this Saturday, so.
Yay.
And what else did you get this spring? Or winter?
My certification
Uh-huh, for?
for HR.
Tell them what it is.
It's a certification in HR management. That's it. It's,
Well, I think you're in trouble, though.
Yeah.
If this will help out, Bo, I made him ask you.
Yeah, just bump it up a little bit. We do appreciate the work that you went through to get that.
Yes,
yeah,
It's
thank you.
commendable. Thank you.
it is not an easy task, I can guarantee you, so thank you very much.
Thank
For being
you.
here and for being that dedicated.
And during the break, you can go function.
I will. We good? Thank you.
Hey, Bo?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's kind of a snapshot from our perspective over the next 5 years. There's some interesting things about the timing of this, and we're going to talk about some of those a little bit in tonight's regular agenda. But I think the question from our perspective is now at this point in time, after having this, is kind of where would you like to go, or what in specifically might you like to see next? The one thing that I can offer to you as we're sitting here tonight is at our next council meeting, we could have another workshop and have our cost of service study, a draft of it presented to the council for water and sewer, water and wastewater services, from Dan Jackson at Wildan, professional agreement that you allowed us to enter into to try to help identify our future costs with the utility, and in turn take into account some of the possible projects that we might have. We have had an initial meeting with him and gone over what he would like to present. I think it's appropriate that it be presented to the council now, and it get council's input from what you see out of that particular report. That's one item that we could do next. The other that we'll talk about in briefly in the meeting tonight is, you know, budget started for us on the 4th. And so those budgets are out in those departments now, currently being prepared and going to be submitted. At the next council meeting, we would ask, and it'll be on the budget calendar that you see tonight, the regular meeting, on the meeting of the 24th, ask council if there's any specific direction that you want to provide to us regarding the preparation of the budget, things to keep in mind or be cognizant of. Right now, the limitations are to the typical limitations that I place on these guys every year when we go into preparing the budget, and that's try to keep your operational costs as close as possible. Don't be trying to add anything into the budget that's not already in a capital improvement plan or a strategic plan, and those types of things. But if there is further direction that the council would like us to try to incorporate in the preparation of that proposed budget, please let us know. And then we can also dive into any of this any further that you might desire to dive into, or begin to go seek other solutions if that's a desire for the council as well. So thank you.
Okay. Anyone have any more comments, questions? I'm hearing none, then I will entertain for a motion to adjourn the special workshop.
So move.
I have a motion from Mr. Fuller. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Fuller and a second from Mr. Potter. Will you poll the council, please, for a vote?
Fortner,
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller,
Yes.
Bruce, yes, Potter,
Yes.
Thank Kelly,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. This concludes our special workshop. We will
Yeah.
7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock. Is everybody ready?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Ready to go? The Hewitt City Council will come to order. Will you poll the council for attendance?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Hold on.
Do I need to restart?
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
The Hewitt City Council will come to order. Will you poll the council for attendance, please?
Yes. Van Kelly?
Yes.
Bruce? Yes. Fortenberry?
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller?
Yes.
Potter?
Yes.
Walter North?
Present.
Turner?
Yes. Item number 2, will you join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Amen.
Item number 3, Lydia, do we have any pure visitor slips?
No, sir.
All right. We'll move on then to item number 4, consider approval of minutes of the city council workshop and regular meeting of April 19th, 2021. I now open it for corrections, suggestions, comments, and/or a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Benkali,
I move approval of the minutes as presented, but to allow for corrections.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Benkali. I have a second from Dr. Bruce. I call for final question and/or discussion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Van Kelly?
Yes.
Bruce? Yes. Fortenberry?
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller?
Yes.
Potter?
Yes.
Walter North?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes. Item number 5, presentation of report from city engineer. Update on pending city utility projects, update pending on street projects, and update on pending drain projects, or drainage, I should say. Miles.
Mayor,
come on.
council, you have my written report, FM 2113 on the utility project, FM 2113 Spring Valley. The contractor is making connections, one at a time, making about 2 a week. This afternoon, driving in, looked like they were swapping over some meters for some residents that frontage on Spring Valley. That project is coming to a close here pretty quick. They'll be doing the final task, once they get everything converted, will be the street repairs for our residential streets, concrete riprap repairs on the drainage structures, and just the overall grading, picking up rocks and stuff like that of the yards. Street improvements, East Warren. The city's design for this project is completed. I've been in contact with both Atmos and AT&T in regards to their utilities on the project. I did receive an email Friday from AT&T. They acknowledge that some of their utilities are in conflict and will be gearing up to get those relocated just before us. According to their schedule, it's about 12 weeks out from when we got to get that going. That'll kind of fall in nicely with us. Once we begin advertising for bids, there'll be about 6 weeks process between starting advertising to the award of the contracts and so on. So we'll be just right behind them. Atmos side of things, they do have partially located their lines. However, there was a portion of it that was older that they may potentially have to do some potholing on to see where it lies in the grand scheme of things. Ritchie Road, street improvements. As y'all have driven by, you've seen that they have poured some additional sections heading west from Patriot Court. Further on in the meeting, there's another item regarding some additional subgrade work. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and kind of speak to that right now under this item. When we performed geotechnical reports on this project, we anticipated that the total subgrade to be as was presented in the TxDOT project that was the realignment of Ritchie Road, which would include 8 inches of line subgrade, 4 inches of gravel flex base, and then 2 layers of HMAC, hot mix asphaltic concrete on top of it. When they got the northern section of this street milled out, we realized very quickly that we didn't have underneath what we thought we had. Meaning we had some of that black soil, I call it gumbo soil, right under the edge of it, that extended about 5 feet from the edge, proposed edge of pavement, into the new street. I got with the geotechnical firm to ask what our options were, not wanting to bring in crushed limestone base, asking about utilizing the millings that we just removed from the project. We got those recommendations back from them, that we got that profile worked out, and then I got with the contractor to get what that cost would be to take out an additional 6 inches of soil for that 8-foot width, kind of carrying over just a little bit more, and bring in compacted 6-inch lift of those millings. That came out to be about $13.12 per square yard. In my letter that follows with that, this northern phase is going to cost approximately $12,634 if it's the true 8-foot width the entire way. That to say, when we mill the southern side of the road, if we encounter the same conditions, that would be an additional $13,146.20 for a totaling $25,780.80 roughly. We are proposing to ask the council to approve these additional funds to perform that work on a square yard basis. So it's not the $25,780. It's going to be what we actually realize in the field once we get the other side milled out. So we'll visit that at the next item, but I did want to bring it up at this time so you knew it was coming. The second part of the discussion, the overall timeliness of the project and the conditions of the project. Over the past, was it February, March, April, and now into May, we've had some delays on the project, some being weather-related, others being conditions-related. When I say conditions, excuse me, is the materials being delivered not curing as we had hoped, so we have to give it an extra 7 days of cure time so we can reach that break that we're trying to achieve. The last thing, or the biggest one that we've encountered here recently, is material availability in the grand scheme of things. Currently, right now, there's a shortage on a variety of materials in the construction area. Cement being one, which is affecting us. Fly ash, which is an additive to concrete, it's affecting us on this one. And then in other areas, PVC, lumber, steel, and stuff of that nature. The contractor, there has been a delay at the last part of April, just trying to get on the books to get a pour. People trying to order more than what they need, knowing that there is going to be a delay in it. So overselling, and then having the restricted amount of cement coming into each batch plant, trying to catch maybe a canceled pour on a fly if TxDOT had one cancel on I-35 due to conditions. So as of about Tuesday of last week, we couldn't even get on the books for our current material supplier for concrete. Tuesday of last week, we did get pours lined out for this remaining section, pending weather conditions allow it. One being Wednesday of this week, another being Thursday of this week, and then the 17th and 19th. At the 19th, if everything goes well, we'll have this current phase completely poured out and just waiting on the cure times for the concrete to switch over. Spoke with the contractor this afternoon to see if there's any new developments that have occurred from Friday of last week till today that he's heard of. The only thing that he had update-wise is he's attempting to go ahead and try to get on the books, if he can squeeze in on Friday, anticipating that Wednesday's pour may not happen due to the rain projected tomorrow afternoon. I say this, I know there's a lot of frustration out there between residents, just passerbys, about what we're seeing out there. Some of it may be self-inflicted on our behalf, the contractor's behalf and such. Others are factors that are right now beyond our control. In visiting with TxDOT, because, you know, they do a lot more road work than I ever thought about doing. They, so far, are priority on a lot of these batch plants where they know that there's a shortage, but it hasn't impacted their pours as of yet. But they know that the grumblings are out there that if this progresses for the next 3 to 6 months, it may affect them. So that's what I have on the delay discussion, if there are any other points of that may be asked. And then lastly, roadway condition of the existing roadway. If y'all driven the new roadway, the new portion that's open between here and Hewitt Drive, it is a little rough. You hit those contraction joints and expansion joints a little hard. When we first noticed it was right when we opened that new section of roadway and they started pouring the phase 2 section. We worked quite a bit on the downhill side of it, down there by the CEFCO, trying to figure out what's going on. Is it a materials issue? Is it a workmanship issue contributing to this? Are we pouring it too wet and it's creeping down the hill on us a little bit as we're working it? Long story short, we think it's a little bit of everything on that. When they were throwing out their finishers, when they would go out there with the gas-powered finisher the first time, it would go over it correctly, smooth, it would work it out. You let it sit 15 minutes, throw it on there, and it was jumping everywhere. So it was like it was moving a little bit on us as we were going. We did go with the suppliers on it. We did some additional testing on the materials as it was being delivered. We did get some air entrainment issues worked out that does have a little bit to do with the workability of the product, but not to the extreme we were seeing. All that being said, the contractor is very aware that it's not the product that we paid for, that we hoped for. They've been talking with other contractors, trying to get their side of the spectrum completed. Also talking with some other contractors that do concrete milling to come over here and top it off, try to knock off the high points, smooth it up a little bit. They did get some of those numbers back. They were a little bit higher than they were hoping to see on that. So they are to provide the city their solution to get this concern addressed. And when I have that information, I will bring that to y'all at that time. The latest I've heard on it is they're looking at doing a 4-foot wide drum concrete miller and going through there and kind of hitting it themselves. It's kind of I think it's going to be like a skid steer mounted application. But we do have some concerns on tolerances. I don't want you to gouge a spot and make it worse than what we got right now. So as we get that worked out, I will bring that back to you. I've beaten that one to death, but if there are any questions on that, I know it's a topic near and dear to us right now because we drove on it here and driving on we leave.
Anyone have any questions or comments they wish to make?
2020 park improvements, the contractor has poured the concrete curb in front of the pavilion over there. That was a small enough concrete pour. They were able to catch a cancellation from somebody else, so they got that poured. The next portion of that will be the concrete valley gutter, where the new asphalt will tie into the existing roadway that goes through there. However, again, I told them, y'all focus on Ritchie Road right now. Let's get this wrapped up in a nice spot, then we'll progress with that one. Lastly, we had the 208, 212 cross-country drainage improvements. That contractor has been out there. They actually got their concrete flume poured today, trying to beat some of the rain anticipated. Once it cures, we'll get out there and take a look at it. They'll start the dressing up of it, and hopefully we'll get that one off the books completely. So that one is a little short project, and they've done so far a decent job getting it knocked out. So if there are any questions, that is my written report at this time.
Anyone have any questions or comments? I'm hearing none, so thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6, consideration and action on appointments to the Library Board, Parks and Beautification Committee, and the Planning and Zoning Commission. Bo?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you have a few vacancies. On the library board, received a resignation from Ronald G. Smith. And we have one application to fill that board vacancy from Mr. Ryan Irk. And he would serve the remainder of that term, unexpired term, until December of 2021. We've received 2 applications on the Parks and Beautification Committee to serve, one from Mr. Charles Hunter Edmondson and another from Ms. Shayla Wicks. Mr. Edmondson would be serving an unexpired term ending December of 2022, and Ms. Wicks would be serving an unexpired term ending December of 2021. And then on planning and zoning, we received an application from Mr. Dustin Crawford. Mr. Crawford would serve an unexpired term on the Planning and Zoning Commission until June of 2023. Being as the meeting's not open to the public, Mr. Mayor, members of council, none of those people are in attendance, but they would help fill up some of the vacancies we currently have on your advisory boards. Thank you.
All right. And if I read this correctly, we have only one applicant per spot that is open, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'd like to do these in 3 parts. We'll start with the library board. I'll open it now to council for discussion and or motion or comment.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Benkali.
I move to approve Ryan Irk to the library board, term expiring in December 2021.
All right, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Benkali, a second from Mr. Fuller. I call for final question and our discussion. I'm hearing none. Will you poll the council for a vote on the library board appointment?
Fuller,
Yes.
Bruce, Potter,
Yes.
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Waltendorf,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes. We'll move now to Parks and Beautification Committee. We have 2 applicants there, so I will open it to the council for a motion, comment, or question.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Fortenberry.
I move to approve Charles Hunter Edmondson, term expiring 2022, and Shayla Wicks, term expiring 2021.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I have a motion from Mr. Fortenberry and a second from Mr. Bencolli. I call for final question and/or discussion. I'm hearing none. Will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Bruce? Yes. Potter?
Yes.
Van Kelly?
Yes.
Fortenberry?
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller?
Yes.
Walkendorf?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes. All right, we'll move finally to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have an applicant for the one spot that is open. I'll now open it to council for a motion, discussion, and/or comment. Mr. Potter.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Dustin Crawford, term expiring June 2023, to the Planning Zoning Commission.
All right, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Potter, a second from Mr. Fuller. I call for final question and/or discussion. I'm hearing none. Will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Fortenberry?
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller?
Yes.
Bruce? Yes. Potter?
Yes.
Van Kelly?
Yes.
Walkendorf?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes. Item number 7, ratify the expenditure of $1,731.84 for additional subgrade work on the 2020 Ritchie Road Street Improvements Phase 2 project and authorize a change order to the contract with Waco Paving, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $30,000. Miles, you want to step forward?
Yes, sir. To going back to Ritchie Road project and that discussion about the subgrade work and the conditions found on the outer 8-foot stretches of the northern half. What I'm asking tonight is the council to consider authorizing some additional funds not to exceed $30,000 on a per square yard basis at that $13.12 to fix the locations that we find that aren't what we thought they were when we did the geotech. The reason for the ratification of the 1731.84, we had a pour last week. I told them, go ahead with it. Don't miss a pour date because of this. So I'm asking for forgiveness on that one. And if y'all would ratify that expenditure of funds for me, and asking for y'all to then approve an additional not to exceed $30,000 for the subgrade repairs as they're discovered.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Fortenberry.
I move to ratify the expenditure of $1731.84 for additional subgrade work to the 2020 Ritchie Road Street Improvements Phase 2 project, and I move to authorize a change order to the contract with Waco Paving, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $30,000 for the 2020 Ritchie Road Street Improvements Phase 2 project.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Fortenberry, a second from Mr. Bencolli. I call for final question and/or discussion. I'm hearing none. Thank you, Miles. Will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Walkendorf?
Yes.
Van Kelly?
Yes.
Potter?
Yes.
Bruce? Yes. Fuller?
Yes.
Fortenberry?
Yes, ma'am.
Not me.
Oh, Turner?
Yes. That's okay. I'm often overlooked. Item number 8, briefing and discussion concerning cybersecurity training mandated by House Bill 3834. Bo?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, House Bill 3834 is on us again this year. On or around Friday, April 23rd, you should have received an email regarding cybersecurity training. It's the same program that the Texas Municipal League puts on and requires of us to basically receive that training on an annual basis. Trying to wrap that portion of things up, so if by the 31st, everybody could get their training in and done, that'd be great. And if you have questions, need help or assistance with getting that accomplished, Jessica's the lady to see. That's all we have.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments? I'm hearing none, so we'll move on to item number 9, briefing and discussion concerning fiscal year 2021-2022 budget calendar. Bo?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, in your packets, trying to provide you a budget calendar so you have some key critical dates in mind in the upcoming months for budget preparation, presentation, and actions of the council in summer months regarding the budget and tax rate adoption. As you can see, over on the right-hand column of the page, you will see some highlighted important dates that correspond with the items on the left-hand side of the page. But as we discussed a little earlier, the budget began for us internally on May the 4th. And you can see on the meeting of May the 24th, if council has any budget expectations, we'll have an item on the agenda on the 24th that council can highlight that. The deadline for me to receive the departmental budgets is going to be on the 15th of June. And then I will be trying to get that budget out to the council prior to the end of June for you to begin to review. And then we have some proposed budget workshops in conjunction with some council meetings. And then below that, you can see deadline dates for certified tax values and so on. But I just wanted to give you the reference tool so that you'd have it for the next several weeks ahead. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions or comments? I'm hearing none, so we'll move on to item number 10, briefing and discussion concerning coronavirus, COVID-19 measures, protocols, and mitigation efforts. Bo?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the only thing that I have regarding that this evening is an operational question, basically. We've made a couple of minor changes that the council's been aware of in the past. The real question tonight is since the beginning of the pandemic, we ceased accepting park reservations and issuing park permits. With some of the most recent changes with CDC guidance and a few of those types of things, the changes that state of Texas has made through the governor's office, I just thought I would ask because we're beginning to get requests again to be able to reserve parks. And I just wanted to kind of get an idea of how the council felt about that and if you thought that this was an appropriate time to go about doing that.
Is that everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have one question. If we lift some of the restrictions and everything and start reserving the parks again, which I want to see us get back to as much of a normalcy as we can, if someone reserves a park or if people come into the park and they don't observe the social distancing that needs to be or some of the guidelines, who is responsible for them if they turn up having COVID? Can they come back on the city because we allowed them to rent the park? Or is that whoever rents the park is obligated to make sure that they meet any guidelines that are still in effect?
Based upon that question, the way it's posed and so on, I don't believe that the city would have any liability if someone were to be able to demonstrate that they received COVID at the park. But then two is we would place those guidelines and restrictions regarding COVID protocols on whoever was planning the event. Or in this particular situation, one of the ones we've got right now is one of the local churches is wanting to have another service at the park. later on this month.
Okay. Because I wanted to make sure that, you know, like I said, I do want to open the parks up as soon as we can, but I have seen just out and about when I'm out in places, that a lot of people are ignoring, of course, there's some that have ignored it from day one, so that was one of my concerns is if we did open it. Mr. Bengali?
Mr. Mayor, people are using the pavilions even though they're not reserving. I mean, there's crowds out there. The park at Warren Park, that little parking lot has been packed. The whole pavilion's been packed with people, or at least half packed with people. We've got the signs up about social distancing in the park. You can add to the agreement this information about what we expect. I think it would be a good thing to do based on everything that I'm hearing, unless Dr. Bruce has some latest information. Outdoor activities are becoming more acceptable as long as it's not a mass shoulder-to-shoulder outdoor activity type thing. I would be in favor of that, definitely opening that back up. Something else I would like for us to consider is opening our meetings back up. And the governor saw fit to take away the mask requirement, but he didn't reinstate the Open Meetings Act. That, to me, especially now with the budget coming up and starting to work on that to me is an important thing that we should consider as well. With that, Mr. Mayor, back to you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, just
Yes,
one
sir.
quick comment, members of council. Which bathroom projects do you have ongoing that you are kind of wanting to hold off on park reservations just yet? Hewitt Park. Hewitt Park. I couldn't remember which one. Until about when, you think, Scott?
Probably early next week.
Not long.
That all?
Yes, sir. It just popped in my mind, and I wanted the council to have that information should they need it.
Okay. Anyone? Mr. Fortenberry?
To follow Mr. Bencali, I agree especially on having the citizens come back to the meetings. Well, this is just a guess. I'm gonna guess 90% or more of the folks that are out there have had their shots, most likely. I think getting back to normalcy is important. As I mentioned, I get requests, if not daily, weekly, about when are we gonna have our meetings back open. I think it's important. I want that to occur because they're supportive of the council. They may not always agree with what we're doing or like but they're here to support and give their opinions, which I think are important. I don't mean to trump on what you're saying, Mr. Bencali. I agree with you. I think it's important for us, but I also think it's important really for the residents in the city to have the input of the folks that live here. So that's all.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, so
Dr. Bruce?
just the park situation is different, I feel like, than the council. In here, we're in a closed space, and so we can only get so many people in here in social distance. So that's something we have to consider when we start opening meetings up again. In the parks, because it is outdoors, we can make recommendations about social distancing and all of those things in a contract. We can't force them to do that, just like we can't force them to be vaccinated. So I think all of those things in the park are certainly more doable. Opening meetings back up, I think we have to consider how many people we can actually get in this room and still be social distance, and that's a different thing.
No? Okay. Anyone else? All right. Bo, what directive do you need to hear from council? Or have you heard what you need?
Mr. Mayor, I think from a park reservation perspective, I think we can handle that appropriately, and and provide the appropriate information to people and get insurance requirements and so on. The opening the meetings back up, I would certainly, I understand the want and the need, but I would certainly want to make sure that before we open the meetings back up, that is at least the consensus of the council that occur. Because I think there's going to be, should we get, well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 over here. We still have about another 4 or 5 other staff members that typically attend meetings. If it's going to be, I think, virtually impossible for 8 or 9 of us to socially distance at the dais. That's going to be a difficult task. And then how many people do we limit coming in the door in terms of just the public? And then if we do open the meetings back up to the public, can we actually limit that number of people? I'm not sure that we can. Other than room occupancy.
Yeah, I don't think there's room occupancy anymore. There's no standard anymore. So we can't, I don't think we can limit that.
You set your own parameters as far as if you want 6 foot of spacing, you put the chairs 6 foot apart and, in all directions, and you'll get 4 or 5 rows of it. But you can set your own, it's your property, you can set the parameters.
So if we put a certain number of chairs out and we separated them by 6 feet, circle, that if everyone was in one of those seats, anybody else who came in would have to assume a position up against the wall or in the doorway or something like that.
Or we just have to turn them away. That which is the bad part of it, it's not truly an open meeting when only a select few can come in, so. I intend with most of my cities and counties to ride it out as long as the governor is gonna keep it in place. But everybody's different, you know.
Is that all?
Yes, sir.
Mr. McCollum?
Since I brought it up, and there's a couple of reasons I brought this up, I'm okay with no decision being made tonight. I'd like to have an agenda item at our next meeting to discuss it and potentially take action on setting forth things. But what I do not want to happen, what I'm concerned is going to happen, is that what is happening today with other bodies, to where people are not allowed a face-to-face meeting to object to things. And if we go to set tax rates, budgets, without allowing people to be present and to speak, not just write, but to speak, because you can sit here and read something and make it mean or sound like you're meaning something else just by the way you're reading something, and maybe that's not what they intended for it to mean. So my goal is to get the people back involved again. if they want to object to something, maybe we come up with some type of technology solution to where we can allow them to speak to the council remotely. But that's my purpose and the reason I brought this up. So I'm okay with not making a decision tonight. I didn't expect it. It's something that I would like us to consider. I want us to consider the safety of all involved, not just the council, not just the employees, but also the residents. But I want to make sure that their voices are heard when it gets down to setting tax rates. Mr. Mayor.
We've got time before then
Yeah.
to figure out how's the best way to do it.
And you never know. I mean, we may fall back into a spike or something. You know, a lot of things can change between now and then. But if we don't start considering it now, I wanted just to bring that up for us to think about, for everybody to kind of have on their mind. Yeah, I'm done.
Maybe, Mr. Mayor, what we need to do is
Yes, Dr.
figure out how
Cruz.
many people we can get in here with social distancing, and then, once we know how many people we can safely get in here, then maybe it's some kind of registration thing for a weekly meeting, and, I don't know how many people wanna be here, but maybe it's some sort of online registration thing. If we can only get 10 people in here, then, and there's more than 10 people, maybe they need to register. But I'd be interested to know how the rest of everybody feels about that, getting them in and bringing them back. Certainly, they're invaluable, I understand that. I think the safety of not only the council and our staff, but those folks as well, whether they want to be protected from that or not, is something that we need to consider. So maybe figuring out how many we can get in here, and then figuring out if we can do an online RSVP system or something, might be the way to do that, if the rest of the council feels like it's something that we need to do.
Well, there are some cities that are doing combined. They have I know Robinson, they have a limited number of seating in there, but they're still doing the video. And where you can participate from home, but they have 6 foot spaced out seats in there too. And they have a police officer, well, they did, that's the start of it, checking your temperature at the door. Now it's just making sure you have your mask on. So,
Is that all, Mark?
Yes, that's it.
I would, personally, I would agree that I think that if we do, we have whatever we can meet the guidelines by, and we have, say, 20 chairs, I'm gonna use that number, then yes, I think there should be a place for someone to come and say, I wanna reserve, I'm gonna be there, so I want a chair. And we have it, once those 20 are filled, unless someone cancels or doesn't show, you know, we have to. Because otherwise, if you have people that come in and sit down, and then you have others lined against the wall, then eventually they're gonna be a double stack in both places, and it's, I can see that just going downhill in a hurry, where if we just say we're opening it up, but I still wanna see us do the video streaming, even after everything's open, and we can put all the people we want in here. I still think that is a great service to our citizens, that we continue to do this regardless if we have to deal with COVID or don't. I think it's the only way, because some people, it's a challenge for them to get here. Maybe they have children to take care of, maybe they're senior citizens that can't get around, or people that are having to get ready to go out of town or with their regular jobs or whatever. They can't be here for whatever reason it is, but they'd still like to know what's going on. So I hope council will approve, I know I certainly will, that we continue the streaming and showing it on the internet, because that way no one can come back and say, well, I didn't have an opportunity, or I wish you would have afforded, you know, whatever we need to do. So I would agree that we need to limit the chairs to what we need, but let them reserve them if they can, and continue our streaming. And with that, I will pass the conversation to anyone else. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to see us keep broadcasting it over TV or whatever, that, so that people can stay at home or come up here and get in the library or somewhere and watch it on TV or, is that how we're doing it now?
Yes.
I'd like to see it continue to do that.
Is that all, Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm hearing no one, so therefore we will move on to item number 11. Election process, consideration and action on ordinance number 2021-06, canvassing the results, returns and declaring the results of a joint general and special charter amendment election held on May 1st, 2021, to consider 16 amendments to the city charter, and then afterwards administer the oath of office and issue certificates of elections to the elected council members. So Lydia, is this one yours or is this Bo's?
I was going to read that.
You can do it.
So do we need to announce or declare the election results as well as everything else?
Yes.
For the minutes?
First, I'm going to give you those totals. Mayor and council, this item before you is to canvass the returns and declare the results of the joint general and special charter amendment election held on May 1st, 2021, to consider 16 amendments to the city charter. McLennan County Elections Administrator Jared Smith has provided the certified election results this afternoon, and I have the final numbers to present to you this evening. The official canvass of the returns of the May 1st, 2021 special charter amendment election of May 1st, 2021 are as follows. Proposition 1, the vote for was a total of 319. Vote against was 67. Total votes were 386. Proposition passed. Proposition number 2, votes for were 339. Votes against were 46. Total votes 385. Proposition passed. Proposition number 3, total votes for were 303. Against 82. Total 385. Proposition passed. Proposition number 4, votes for 364. Votes against 24. Total votes 388. And the proposition number 4 passed. Proposition number 5, votes for 345. Votes against 40. Total votes 385. Proposition 5 passed. Proposition 6, votes for 332. Votes against 52. Total votes 384. Proposition 6 passed. Proposition 7, votes for 343. Votes against 42. Total votes 385. Proposition 7 passed. Proposition 8, votes for 269. Votes against 116. Total votes 385. Proposition 8 passed. Proposition 9, votes for 323. Votes against 61. Total votes 384. Proposition 9 passed. Proposition 10, votes for 319. Votes against 62. Total votes 381. Proposition 10 passed. Proposition 11, votes for 313. Votes against 66. Total votes 379. Proposition 11 passed. Proposition 12, votes for 323. Votes against 53. Total votes 376. Proposition 12 passed. Proposition 13, the votes for 317. Votes against 58. Total votes 375. Proposition 13 passed. Proposition 14, votes for 320. Votes against 55.
Total votes, 375. Proposition 14, passed. Proposition 15, votes for, 312. Votes against, 62. Total votes, 374. Proposition 15, passed. Proposition 16, votes for, 314. Votes against, 58. Total votes, 372. Proposition 16, passed. There were total votes casted of 404. All 16 propositions said above are declared to have been approved by the voters. And now, Mayor, I will pass it over to you, and you can ask for a motion to approve the ordinance 2021-06, canvassing the returns and declaring results of the election.
All right, I now open it to the council for discussion, comment, and/or motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Walkendorf.
I move to approve ordinance number 2021-06, canvassing the returns and declaring the results of the joint general and special government election held on May 3rd, 2021.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Walkendorf, a second from Mr. Van Colley. I call for final question and/or discussion.
I have one.
Mr. Fortenberry.
I just want to thank the folks that did this. There was a lot of people involved that volunteered to put their time aside to come up with these propositions. I mean, it started with us, but then it went to the committee that actually did all this work, and Mike and Bo and everybody else. But we're going to the vote, but I just want to tell those folks thank you. All of y'all. Y'all did a lot of time and effort, so it's much appreciated.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Potter,
Yes.
Bruce, Fuller,
Yes.
Ordinary,
Yes, ma'am.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. All right, Part B, I will turn back to you, the administer the oath of office and issue certificates of election to elected council members.
Okay, and if y'all could step forward here, that would help keep that, try to make it consistent. First of all, we'll need both. Okay, please raise your right hand and state your name, or I ask you to state your name and repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Charles D. Turner,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of council member
of the office of council member
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my abilities
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Now I will distribute the Thank you very much.
Okay, we will now, I will ask council for a motion to close our general special call meeting and open it in executive session.
I'll move.
I have a motion from Mr. Van Colley. Do I have a second? I have a second from Dr. Bruce. I have a motion, Mr. Van Colley, and a second for Dr. Bruce. Will you call for question and/or discussion or comment? Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Ordinary,
Yes, ma'am.
Fuller,
Yes.
Bruce. Yes. Potter,
Yes.
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Okay, we will So do I hear a motion to close executive session and reopen in our general meeting?
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Fuller. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Fuller and a second from Mr. Potter. I call for final question in our discussion. I'm hearing now, will you poll the council for a vote, please?
Fuller,
Yes?
Briggs, Potter,
Yes.
Van Kelly,
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Yes, ma'am.
Montrose,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes. We will move to the selection of mayor and mayor pro tem. First item up is discussion and action on selection of a mayor. I will now open it to the council for nominations. Dr. Bruce,
I nominate Steve Fortenberry for mayor.
you're nominating
Steve
Steve Fortenberry, okay? Do I hear any other nominations?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Walkendorf,
I'd like to nominate Mr. Michael Bancalli as our next mayor.
all right? We have Mr. Steve Fortenberry, Mr. Michael Bencalli. Do I hear any other nominations? I'm not hearing any, so I will close nominations, and we will now take a vote, and I'll have you ask for a vote. Oh, no. Okay, I'm gonna ask
You
the city
start,
attorney.
you start with the first nomination.
Right.
And you take a vote. And then.
I don't wanna take a hand vote, though. I want it to be in the minutes, so it's heard.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna ask for hands up. I want to poll the council for a vote. So I should do it with the first one and then move to the second one.
Right.
Okay.
Mr.
All
Mayor,
right. Sir.
could I ask Mr. Dixon a quick question before we proceed?
Yes.
Do you need a second for either one of those?
Oh, was there not a second?
There was no
Not
second.
yet.
I second.
Okay.
Mr. Fortenberry.
All right. So you have a second for Mr. Fortenberry? Okay, Bob Potter. And do I have a second for Mr. Bancalli?
we have to have a first, we have to have a motion.
So we have to do a vote on
Walkendorf is the
Fortenberry
motion.
first?
Oh, and we need a second. We just need, Walkendorf is the motion.
No?
No, he meant
It was just a
nomination.
nomination.
Okay.
It was a
The
We
nomination.
need
nomination.
a motion and a second on that.
So do we need let me clarify this. Do we need a motion and a second on these two nominations to be voted upon?
You-
And then
Yeah,
call for
you'll
a
have-
vote to one or the other?
Right, you'll start with a motion on Mr. Fortenberry.
All right?
And then if that carries, then by process of elimination, it's not gonna go well for Mr. Bancalli. So it could either, I mean, if it doesn't carry, then you'll go to the next one.
Okay. So, I have a motion from Dr. Bruce for Steve Fortenberry to be our mayor. I have a second from Bob Potter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Before I move forward?
Yeah,
Okay, and that is what we're gonna vote on at this time. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I'll call for question and final discussion on that as a motion. Hearing none, will you poll the council for a vote for Steve Fortenberry as mayor?
Fuller,
Yes?
Bruce,
Yes.
Potter,
yes.
Van Kelly,
You wanna abstain, you can.
Yeah, I abstain.
Walkendorf,
No.
Turner,
Yes.
Yes.
Fortenberry,
Okay. Are you through now, Lydia?
Hold on, change it to abstain.
Do I? Do you wish to change yours to
Is that what I
abstention?
need? Okay, then it's fine. I'm sorry. Yes.
You wish to abstain?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it seems that we have a new mayor, correct? Based on that vote?
Yes.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
She's yours.
Okay. At this point, do we need to go ahead and call for a nomination for Mayor Pro Tem? Then I ask for a nomination for Mayor Pro Tem, please.
Mr. Fortenberry. Excuse me, Mayor
Yes.
Fortenberry. I would like to nominate Michael Bencalli for Mayor Pro Tem.
And ask for a second.
Second. He did.
Mr. Walkendorf. And Olivia, at this point, can we call for a vote, please?
Well, ask are there any other
Are there any other nominations? Excuse me.
Yeah, ask if there are any other nominations.
Any other nominations for Mayor Pro Tem? Hearing none, if you could call for a vote, please.
Fuller,
Yes.
Bruce. Yes. Potter,
Yes.
Bankole,
Abstain.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Woodbury.
Yes. So the motion carries. Mr. Bankole, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, we need to do our adjournment at this point.
Yes.
For the last agenda item, call for a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Beat you.
And call for a vote, please.
Walkendorf,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Bankole,
Yes.
Potter,
Yes.
Bruce. Yes. Fuller,
Yes.
Woodbury.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, at this point, the meeting is closed. Thank you.